Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to our home church. Let us prepare our heart to heaven. Let's sing a song. Page 100. I came to the garden alone. 100. I came to the garden alone.
I come to the garden alone, while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses, and He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. He speaks, and the sound of His voice is so sweet, the birds hush their singing, and the melody that He gave to me within my heart is ringing. And He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. I'd stay in the garden with Him, though the night around me be falling, but He bids me go through the voice of woe. His voice to me is calling, and He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known. And He walks with me and He talks with me, and He tells me I am His own, and the joy we share as we tarry there, none other has ever known.
Thank you. Everybody stand up. Greet Heavenly Father, God, and true parent. Thank you. Today is Sunday morning, January 20, 2019. Let us bow to Heavenly Father, God, and true parents. Humble, hello. Join me in prayer. 살아계시는 하나님 아버지, 참 부모님 안녕하십니까? Today is January 20, 2019. The Heavenly calendar is December 15, 9th year of the Cheonggyeolguk. We are so grateful to receive your love and guidance through your word. Our pastor preparing a heart toward heaven and then receiving your word through his heart and mind. We are so grateful to greet with you and in our deep heart and receiving your heart and love. Today is the here in the Golan and the northern country, so much snow. We hope the people traveling can be safe and protected by heaven and be safe. And any other country, and the people can feel your heart and your providence moving on to the world level, hearing the new message and excited, and through your word, and good and evil was separating, and your children waking up to your calling. Even people can dream and see the vision. Please, people prepare to receive your guidance in their life and make progress, and in this earth can rejoice with you and the new coming, the returning Christ. Please guide this time to cooperate our heart, receiving your guidance in our life, and progress your providence. Thank you very much. We want to attend you and sincere heart. Thank you very much. In the name of Raman and Tamiko Montanaro, blessed Central family. Aju. Amen. Thank you. Please seated. Welcome our Pastor Montanaro. Welcome.
Hi everybody.
Hi.
So it's already snowed a foot of snow in New Hampshire, northern New Hampshire here, Gorham, and probably another 6 to 8 inches more coming this afternoon and evening. So almost 2 feet of snow. Woohoo! It was very funny yesterday. I was in Walmart and I was shopping. My wife sent me. She didn't want to go. You know, the snow was starting, and it was very funny because the place was packed with men with lists. It was so funny. All the women had sent their men shopping. There were hundreds of men in the store, all with lists, you know, like this, buying stuff. I was cracking up. So anyway, today I want to talk about our original nature, which is to serve. Actually, I understood something recently that really helped me a lot, and I hope it helps you as well. We often struggle with the idea of being unselfish, right? Or religion in general. We think that it's sort of an imposition, right? Like, oh, I have to be good. I have to serve other people. I can't be happy, right? Or people's idea of heaven. You talk to people about heaven. You could have your heaven. I don't want to be up there in the clouds playing harps, you know. I'd rather be in hell if at least I can party or something like that. That's what they think, you know. If heaven is a place just sitting on the clouds, that gets old really fast, you know. That's people's idea of heaven, right? And if you talk about a good world, they think everyone's like goody two-shoes, like Ned Flanders in The Simpsons or something, like, oh golly gosh, gee, you know, neighbor, howdy-dowdy-do, you know. it's like everybody's like too sweet, you know, and there's no joy in it. This is like people's idea of heaven, right? And they think that religion is all about building that world, and that religious people are like that. That's why The Simpsons are making fun of religious people by making Ned Flanders look like an idiot, right? Like he's this, oh, howdy-dowdy-do, neighbor, you know. And even his pastor doesn't like him, you know. The thing I realized is that, and this I realized from studying Principle, and I want to read a couple parts of Principle to you and talk about the ideas of the Principle and how we were created by God. And then show you that we have actually two natures within us. And I'm not talking about good and evil. That's a two different kind of natures. And those were not originally created by God, right? The original nature created by God was not you know, good and evil. We were supposed to be just good, right? So I want to show you that the way God created us was actually to have two natures. Now, we're not talking about good and evil. That was not the way God created us. I'm talking about God created us to have two bodies. Everything in the universe has an inner self and an outer self. The principle uses Korean, and it talks about seongsang and hyeongsang. It means an inner nature and an outer form. Or you could say almost like a directive nature and a formal nature. It's hard to translate seongsang and hyeongsang into English. But I could say it's more like a directive nature or an inner nature, an inner directive nature and an outer formal nature, a nature that takes the form of that direction. And it's not just human beings, right? Animals have an instinct that guides them to, we don't see the instinct, we can't find any place in their body or brain that it's located. But somehow, all animals know how to be that animal. Squirrels are born knowing how to be a squirrel. Their parents don't have squirrel school, where you have a bunch of little baby squirrels lined up. It's very cute, but a bunch of baby squirrels lined up taking notes. Okay, when autumn comes, you have to collect nuts. Wake up, Peter. If you don't pay attention, you're going to starve this winter. It's not like that. They don't have squirrel school, right, or fish school. Well, they actually do have fish schools. Okay, never mind. But they have schools of fish. But anyway, they don't have schools in the sense that they have to learn how to be who they are. And trees don't have to learn how to be who they are. You can take an acorn from an oak tree and plant it in a field where there's no other oak trees, and it'll grow. It doesn't get education from the other oak trees. No, that's right. Come on, you can do it. Push up. That's right. Push those little leaves out. It doesn't need that. Inside its nature, in that little acorn, is the entire oak tree in code. Spiritual code. There's an inner nature. And as we go down to the mineral world, we see that nature is still consistent. Iron knows how to be iron. It is composed of atoms of iron, iron, right? Ferrous, iron. And iron is an element composed of a certain number of protons and a certain number of electrons and a certain number of neutrons, and those things are forming an atom of iron. And molecules, which are higher than the elements, the molecules of, protein or the different kinds of carbohydrates that we eat, or whatever the DNA molecule, they're brilliantly guided and designed. And ultimately we know, as we go deeper, you know where I'm going with this, that there's God. God created the universe so that everything has within it two purposes. And this is what I'm trying to get to for our sermon today. We also have two purposes. And all things, even down to the atoms and subatomic particles, have two purposes. What are their two purposes? One purpose is to maintain itself. So an atom's purpose is to keep its own integrity as an atom. It's guided so that it keeps a certain number of proteins and neutrons in its core, and a certain number of electrons in the various shells that make up the electronic part of the atom. And that makes an atom, and it keeps that self going. But also within it is the desire to form bonds with other atoms that were created by God to build up the universe, to build up the molecules and the matter that makes up the universe. If it was just elements, all we'd have is elements, in discrete elements. We'd have hydrogen, we'd have helium, we'd have lithium, we'd have the different elements of the periodic table, which you all study in high school, right? You study the periodic table of elements. And you know that there's about 103 or so. There's more, but they really get heavy and they start to break down, But there's about 103, 110, 100, something like that, elements. And then there's some that have been discovered that are, very brief lives or whatever. But basically 100 elements. That's not what we see. God knew when He created energy, when energy came into being and He guided the energy into form, and He guided it into protons and electrons, and then neutrons. With those three things, protons, three things, the multiplicity of forms that we see in the universe has come about. Right? That's amazing. And those three things ultimately are just energy. Right? Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. That means mass and energy are interchangeable. And at the level, subatomic level, photons which are particles of light, weightless particles of light, right? Particles with no mass. It's like we get to this point where we're studying physics that goes beyond anything that our ancestors could have imagined. We finally realize that light is both a particle and a wave. It acts as both a particle and a wave. It's energy and matter. It's like going back and forth. Right? Wow. This is, scientists even at that point are like speculating about the nature and reality of matter. Right? From that point, we see this. Even one snowflake, they say that there's no two snowflakes that are identical. I mean, to that level, we see uniqueness. We see, just even in the snowflakes, we see uniqueness. Forget about the many species and natures of plants and animals that we see, and that's just on this planet. And the different forms and radiation and electromagnetic waves and forces of the universe. But it's being guided to create this form. Because everything has within it two purposes. One purpose to maintain itself. A proton wants to maintain its own identity as a proton and not disassociate the energy that forms it and make it into other electrons. Right? A proton wants to maintain its identity as a proton. An electron wants to maintain its identity as an electron. And then those two things relate with each other and then form an atom. And then the atom has its own identity, built up by the protons and electrons and neutrons who are maintaining their own identity, but also working together to create something higher. See, there's two purposes. One is to maintain itself. The second purpose is to build something higher. In other words, a proton lives to become an atom. Its dream is to become an atom. It's not happy being a proton. It wants to be an atom. An atom has two purposes. One, to maintain itself as an atom, but it's not happy just being an atom. It wants to build a molecule. Even hydrogen, which is the simplest atom, just one proton and one electron, wants to join with another hydrogen, right, to form H2. Right? That's how it exists in nature, is H2. Two hydrogens together, bonded together. And even then, hydrogen is very volatile, right? It's explosive. And it will join with oxygen to form water. It'll join with chlorine to form hydrochloric acid. It'll join with many things. Hydrogen is very volatile. Right? And so it lives to create all these forms. How cool is that? What put that purpose in it? Is it just random?
It's a certain principle involved.
Yeah, there's something inside the hydrogen. Think about this. If you just have energy, does energy suddenly coalesce to form matter? If I light a match, is that heat going to suddenly coalesce and form matter? The heat wants to disperse, right? The energy tends, this is the law of entropy, it tends to go to disperse, to get widespread. It tends not to coalesce into one form. In other words, the existence of a proton is violating the second law of thermodynamics. It's violating the idea that energy wants to form the widest spread nature. So there's some principle involved, pulling that energy together to make a proton, pulling those protons and electrons together to form atoms, pulling atoms together to form molecules, putting molecules together to form minerals, pulling minerals together to form plants, pulling plants together to form the variety of plants that we see. Plants, then somehow animals came into existence. Why did that happen? Random? I think not. I think not. Can you imagine, from an explosion of energy in a billion, trillion, quadrillion years, A DNA strand? A double helix? Just randomly coming about? Actually, that kind of a concept is insane. It's insane. It lacks sanity. People that believe that should not be called scientists. A scientist is someone who wants to know the truth. When you see a double helix, you have to ask the question, how did that come about? And a double helix is the basic building block of all life, right? The DNA strand. So when we see a cell, a single cell, where did that come from? If you think about a single cell, we can say, oh yeah, okay, from the single cell you could talk about random mutation coming up to human beings. I don't think so. But anyway, you can think about random, our ancestor is a cell, a little amoeba. Somehow that morphed and mutated and became something more complicated, and finally a fish, and finally little hands came out and crawled. It crawled up on land, and then pulled its tails in, and it became something else, and that became something else, and that became something else, and that became me! It's just so nonsense. It's really, actually, I think in about 100 years, people are going to look at that like the way that we look at people who believe the earth is flat. Like, are you stupid? The earth is flat? Are you stupid? Life had just random mutation creating it? I think we're going to get to that same point, where we just see it so obvious that there has to be some outer force coming into the system. You cannot, given the laws of physics, you cannot come up with life. Life is not a natural outcome of the laws of physics. That's maybe the simplest way of putting it. Life in any form, or even a single cell. A cell is really amazing and complex, right? You studied cells in biology, right? They have a cell wall, they have a mitochondria, they have, all kinds of cell nucleus. Inside the cell nucleus is the DNA. It's self-replicating. I mean, come on. Really? From 100 elements? Just 100 elements banging together made a cell? Are you nuts? Wake up! Wake up! God exists! And He's very involved! Okay, He's very involved! And
The high intelligence of the mechanic, that the core of the creator of the nature, we can see through things.
Yeah, you can see intelligence, right? You can see beauty, you can see intelligence. And to believe that that beauty and that intelligence is not there is simply myopic. It's simply blind. Now, I'm still not getting where I want to go with the dual purposes, but I'm almost there, okay? Just hang in there, okay? Because to believe that, see, if you believe there's no God, you're going to have a hard time believing that God created things with dual purposes. So you have to understand, first of all, that God exists. And you have to accept the existence of God. And then you have to realize that God embedded in all objects, all beings, two purposes. One, to maintain its own identity and its own self, and one, to build something greater. And both those purposes are intrinsic. They exist within that being. They're built in. So let's go up the ladder again. Molecules make minerals. Minerals form plants and the basis of animals. Animals eat plants and each other and make all the multiplicity of animals and insects that we see. And finally, human beings. Now, how are we different? We have two natures also. We have two purposes also. But we are created in the image of God, meaning that God created everything else almost like the objects in a museum. They're beautiful, they're intricate, they're intense, they're amazing, but they do not directly relate to God. They're built with God's principles built in. God built them, and God can appreciate them, but they're like the objects in a museum. We were created to appreciate the universe and to love the universe. That's our position as human beings.
Like a symbol and image,
Yeah.
it's different.
Yeah, everything in the universe has God's nature in symbol. But human beings have God's nature and image, meaning that we're the image of God. In Genesis, it says, and God created man as his own image. Male and female created he them. Genesis 1:27. We were created by God in the image of God. What does that mean? It means that we're unique in a couple of senses, actually 3 senses. We were created as a microcosm of the creation. We have every element in us. And so we can relate to the physical world. And we also have all the spiritual elements, so we can relate to the angelic world, the spiritual world. We're a microcosm. We're a mediator between the physical and spiritual worlds. Because nothing else can relate to the spirit world, the world of angels, except human beings. And we can also relate to the animals and plants and minerals through our physical bodies. So we're a mediator, and we're a center of harmony between the 2 realms. When human beings fell, that connecting point between the spiritual and physical worlds was cut and lost. And that's why St. Paul in Romans 8 laments. It says the creation has been groaning in travail. Romans 8:20. The creation has been groaning in travail, waiting for the revealing of the sons of God. All of nature is waiting for us. We have a unique position as the mediator and the center of harmony and the microcosm of the universe. But we also are lords of creation. We were created to have dominion over creation. That's why in the 3 blessings in Genesis, God says, be fruitful, multiply and fill the earth, and have dominion over all things. We have the God's nature in us. When we become one with God, when our mind and body become one, that's what it means to be fruitful. When our mind and body become one, our mind is resonating 100% with God. And our body is resonating with our mind. And then our body is transmitting the love of God to the entire creation. And for the first time, the creation can feel God's love. That's why animals are naturally drawn to human beings, right? That's why we can make pets out of any animal. That's why we can make pets out of lions and tigers. That's why there are people, right? That fellow in the lion preserve who goes in and he hugs the lions and he hangs out with them and he sleeps with them. And right? You've seen those videos, right? That guy that sleeps with lions. And orcas, they're called killer whales, but they like playing with people. They'll actually, if you're swimming, divers know this, that orcas and dolphins will play with people. And they don't try to kill them. And the point I'm making is that we were created as God's children to have dominion over all things, not just by dominating them, like the word dominion suggests beating things up, but it means actually having a dominion of love. Even the angels want to be loved by human beings. We have that position as lords and the center of harmony and the microcosm and the mediator of the entire universe. That's the position, original position of human beings. Amazing, right? Our position's amazing. Now, going back to dual purposes, okay? All things are created with dual purposes. But we're unique in the sense that we have a physical body which has 2 purposes and a spiritual form which also has 2 purposes. So we're like double Oreo cookie. Okay? Our physical body's instinct is like the instinct of animals. In other words, we want to reproduce, have sex, we want to eat, and we want to sleep. And so our instinctive nature will try to keep our body alive and reproductive and having children and this kind of thing. So in that sense, we're the same as animals. We have an animal body in that sense, in one sense. But we also have a spiritual body, a spiritual form, that wants to return joy to God and wants to love other people. Now, this is where we're getting into this part that I just had my own. I mean, I've known these ideas for 38 years, but I just understood something recently which I didn't really understand before. Human beings have dual purposes. Our purpose for the individual and a purpose for the whole. Our purpose for the individual corresponds to our physical nature, meaning our desire to eat, sleep, and have sex and reproduce. That's our self-centered purpose, you could say. And a person who's completely focused on those things is a selfish person. If a person only thinks about eating, sleeping, and having sex, they're a selfish person. You have to watch out for them. They're dangerous. They're actually dangerous. They can hurt people. They can do evil things. They can commit crimes because they're not thinking about anything except themselves. And an evil person is someone whose spiritual nature is completely cut off and they have no give and take with God, no give and take with their original nature, their original mind. But in a healthy human being, this is what I just recently understood. In a healthy human being, it is our nature to love other people. It is in other words, we can't be happy unless we're loving other people. This is what I understood. That when you fulfill your nature, you're happy. When you're hungry and you eat, it gives you happiness. When you're tired and you sleep, it gives you happiness. When you're wanting to reproduce and you can have sex and make babies and have children and reproduce, then you're happy. In other words, when you can fulfill your physical natures, it gives you happiness. But what I didn't understand is that it's actually we're as hungry to fulfill our spiritual nature once our spirit gets activated. Once our spirit is alive, we want to love other people. And if we can't, we feel frustrated, like it's like a hunger that's not being satisfied. It's actually our nature. It's actually human nature, in other words, to love other people. It's human nature to serve. It's human nature to receive joy and happiness by loving other people. Think about this. What makes you happy? Of course, eating and sleeping, and of course, sex and reproduction, those things make us happy. But what makes you happy also? Where does happiness come from? When you do something good for other people, when you bake cookies and bring them around, a tray of cookies around and give everyone, isn't that fun? Isn't that exciting when you've done something like that and you have something to give other people and you bring your cookies around or you bring something good around? I get really excited when I make, like we had guests the other day, right? Just yesterday, and I was able to make my green smoothie, my famous green smoothie. Let's do the recipe: kale and spinach and celery and then blending these things together and with banana and strawberry and plums and cacao nibs and cocoa and walnuts and what else? A little bit of pineapple I threw in there and blueberries and cherries and I just blended the whole thing up and picture I made a whole batch like this, like 20 bottles like this big. And then I was able to bring it down. And you should have seen me. I'm like a little kid. Try this. Giving. I want everyone to try it. Because there's something about serving others that gives us joy. Mm-hmm. Have you ever done that? You've all experienced that, right? When you serve others, when you have something good to give other people, doesn't that make you happy? Yes. Why? You're losing. And for everything that someone else takes, you can't use it yourself. You're getting depleted. You're getting taken from. You're losing. Your physical body should be screaming at you. Don't give away your food. That's your food. You need it to survive. But it makes us happy. Why? Think about it. Think about it. Why does that make you happy? Because we're built by God. It's intrinsic. It's inner. It's built in. We can't be happy unless we're serving others. That's what I realized. It's kind of the flip side. I kind of knew that serving others gives you joy. But I kind of thought it was like optional, like that some people just chose not to do it or something. And this is the kind of revelation I just want to leave you with. If you can remember this one thing from today's sermon, that's all I ask. You can't be happy unless you're serving others. It's built in. You need to serve others. It is as much a need as eating and sleeping and having sex. It's a spiritual need. It's not a physical need. But our spirit needs it as much as our body needs to eat and sleep and have sex. And the fall, Adam and Eve's fall, was the cutting off of their relationship with God because of shame and guilt and fear for what they'd done, which was having premature sexual relationship, first with an angel and then with each other, becoming the first teenage pregnancy in history. Eve gave birth to Cain when she was a teenager. And that's why he grew up badly and he was homicidal and killed his brother. He wasn't raised right because he had teenage parents. So of course they were ashamed of what they'd done, and they cut off their relationship with God because it caused them too much pain. When they were in a relationship with God, they were in pain. Because their original mind, their conscience was pricked every time they came into contact with God. So they pulled away from God and hid. And that's what hell is, by the way. God doesn't send us to hell. We send ourselves to hell. Because being in the presence of God is painful if you're ashamed of something. So our restoration lies, and the Messiah comes for this purpose, our restoration lies in reactivating our spiritual self, feeling that pain of first meeting God, and actually confronting ourselves in the presence of God, and being humble and ashamed. And shame is not bad. Many people, modern people say, oh, religion tries to make you feel guilty. Don't feel guilty. You can do whatever you want. You're free. Just be yourself. Just love yourself. You can be happy that way. No. No, we're created with certain principles. If you violate them, you're going to feel guilt and shame. I'm sorry, there's nothing I can say to make it better for you. If you're following the advice of this society and changing your gender, you are going to feel pain. Because your original mind, your original nature is going to suffer because it wasn't created to violate your own DNA, your own programming that way. And there are many reasons for that. We're not going to go into that now. We've done it in other sermons. But just let me say, it's not just that. There's a million other ways we violate our original nature. Playboys, people who play the field and have sex with many people and don't make a good relationship with anyone, are also violating their original nature, and they will feel pain. Pain is good. And I've talked about this before, but I'll mention it again in case you're a first-time viewer and you haven't watched our previous sermons. Who's fallen asleep on an arm here? When they were in bed, they went to sleep and their arm was trapped under their body in a strange position, and then they wake up and you can't feel your arm. Your arm is dead. Who's had that experience? Everybody? Raise your hands. Yes? It's pretty cool, isn't it? It's like, I can't feel anything, I just go like this. You flop it around like this, It's just like a dead arm, It's like this. And then what happens when the feeling comes back? What happens? What's the first thing you feel? Ah! We call it pins and needles. What do you call it in Japan? That feeling. Is there a name for it? Yeah.
Shibireta.
Shibireta. It's like pins and needles. Poki.
Yeah, I can't.
Poki, sharp feeling. Yeah, in every language they have cool words for this. But the feeling of pins and needles, we call it in English, right? When the blood comes back in and the cells have been deprived, the nerve cells especially have been deprived of blood for a long time, and they've actually gone to sleep, right? That's what's happened. And suddenly the nerves are coming back to life again, blood is flowing back in again, the cells and nerves are getting unnumb. Suddenly pain is the first thing you experience, and it's awful, right? And if you have a good brother or sister, what do? They chase you around trying to touch your arm. And you're like, stop it! Stop it! Right? That's the purpose of good brothers and sisters, right? Of course. So that's what you do when you love somebody. You poke them when their arm is asleep. And then it's like, stop, finally. But finally, the pain starts to go away and you have your feeling back and you can move your arm. Your spirit is the same. If you have been out of a relationship with God, your spirit is numb. It's not dead, it's just numb. We actually say your arm is dead sometimes, or my arm is dead. It's not really dead. Actually, if you did it for a day or 2 days or 3 days, it would actually get gangrene and you'd have to cut it off. And that's what happened in Civil War a lot. And different times, different wars, they had to cut off the circulation so blood would stop flowing, and then gangrene, and anyway, rot would set in, all kinds of things. Horrible, sorry. But anyway, the point is also when somebody has, if they're trapped outside in the cold, for several days or weeks, and then their toes and feet are frozen, then the blood actually, it can't go in anymore. And then when they thaw, they're just a dead piece of meat on the end of your leg. And if you don't cut it off, they'll rot. And the poison will spread to your whole body and kill you. So they have to amputate, right? So we hope that our spirit is not amputated. But our spirit was created as an eternal being by God. So as much as God, it might be easier to amputate, some of the people in this world are so evil, right? People who hurt little children and kill people and things like this are really evil. God cannot give up on them because they have an eternal spirit. So it may be extraordinarily agony when they finally realize what they've done wrong, and their spirit starts to come to life again, and they are aware of how evil what they did was. But that pain is good pain. So when you start coming back to life again, spiritually, when you start to realize, you will cry a lot. I cried for like 2 years straight. When I first heard the Divine Principle, I was crying every day for 2 years. Every day for 2 years I cried. You have to go through tears, because when you realize the depth of our sin, the depth of our evil, the depth of our distance from God, you cry, you weep, you regret. And that process never quite ends, because there's layers upon layers upon layers of our evil, and layers upon layers of regret, and layers upon layers of repentance that we have to go through. But the good news, and this is what made me so excited, this is what I wanted to share with you, is this. It is built in our nature to love others. You can't be happy unless you serve others and love others. Your happiness will always elude you. It is our human nature to love others. Just as much as it's in the nature of an atom to build a molecule, and the nature of a molecule to build a mineral, and the nature of plants to want to serve animals and make fruit and serve the world with their fruit and their leaves to be eaten by animals. And it's much in the nature of animals to want to receive the love of human beings. Animals actually seek our love. They seek our love. We are the center of the universe, for good and bad. We really messed it up so far. But imagine truly loving people like Jesus, and a woman like Jesus' nature, married and having children and raising their children. Imagine that. And then imagine 1 million families like that, 1 billion families like that, the whole world filled with families that are loving and unselfish, living for the sake of others. What a beautiful world. This is God's ideal. This is what God is striving for. And the beautiful part of it is this. It's not an imposition. It is in your nature to want to live in that world. You will never be happy unless you're living in that world. You can run, but you can't hide. You can run, but you can't hide. It is in your nature. And that's really exciting to me. Isn't that exciting? It's not something we have to work for. What I'm trying to say, it's not something that we have to work to try to find our nature. Like, where's that nature of goodness? I'm trying to be good, but I can't be good. It's so hard. I don't know where. God, show me my nature. No. It's built in. Just uncover the crap that's sitting on top of your nature. And naturally you'll feel pain as the blood comes back in again, the spiritual blood. And you'll feel pain, and you'll start to feel movement again, and you'll start to move. And as soon as you start to move spiritually, you'll start serving others. And you'll start feeling happiness. Because it's in your nature. That's what spirits do. That's what a spirit does. It loves others. It serves others. That's what it does. A spirit loves others. It serves others. And when your spirit is alive, that's what it will do. That's what my spirit will do. Isn't that exciting? Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
to me it's really exciting because I fought against myself so long, trying to become a good person, that sometimes you lose sight of the fact that it's your original nature to be good, to be loving, to be true. It's not like you have to fight for that. What you're fighting against is the bad habits you built over thousands of years of being selfish. And the culture around us, which for thousands of years has been selfish. There are signs of coming to life. The religions, the good religions, and the good people in each religion are the ones who are really trying to bring goodness back to life. Christianity in this country has a long history of unselfishness. Where does that come from? Christians have been taught to be unselfish by Christ, Jesus. Greater love hath no man than that he laid down his life for his friends. That was Jesus' words. Right? And Jesus showed that example. But many times we feel it's sort of coming from outside, right? We're being forced to do it, right? Religions are telling us what to do. My parents are telling me what to do. God is telling me what to do. It's coming from outside. I don't want all this pressure. Leave me alone. Let me be alone. But then what I realized is this. It's inside that you're feeling the pressure. Mm-hmm. You had this point before. Yeah. Your original mind wants to be good. And it's fighting with your evil mind, which is saying, just think about yourself. Look out for number one. You have two natures, in this sense, the good and evil. The evil side of you, from years of thousands of years of history and habit and societal pressure, is saying, look out for number one. If you don't take care of yourself, no one's going to. You know, don't give that away. Don't give anything to other people. They're not going to give anything to you. Just be selfish. Just be selfish, dude. Just think about yourself. But then, your original nature inside of you is screaming to get out. It's saying, I want to love. I want to live for others. I want to build a family. I want to love my children. I want my children to love the world. I want our family to love the society. I want our family to help the town, right? I want our family to help Gorham. I want Gorham to help the state. I want the state to help the country. I want the country to help the world. I want the world to help God and to help the spirit world. Right? That's our original nature, and it's fighting against your selfish nature. That's the struggle. But the beauty of what I understood was this. It's not an imposition from outside, from religion or your parents or some outside force that's telling you to be good. It's coming from inside of you. And it's not like Alien, you know. You know? You were thinking that. It's coming from inside of you, this pressure. You have to be good or you won't be happy. You have to live for others or you won't be happy. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can get to work and fight the evil nature, push it aside and start living for others. And your happiness will just grow and grow and grow and grow. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. We were created by God with dual purposes, to live for ourselves and to live for others. It's inside us. You can't get rid of it. It's part of you. Wayne's World. It's part of you. And you have to honor it, otherwise you'll be unhappy. Okay? So let's all honor our original nature and live for the sake of others and build those habits of living for the sake of others. Who wants to live for the sake of others today? Raise your hands if you want to live for the sake of others. Woohoo! Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to say anything, then?
I think that creation and revolution is always fighting, the world.
Creation and
Evolution?
revolution?
Evolution.
Evolution, creation, evolution, yeah.
And
This idea that everything is just random and it just sort of happened and it's just the nature of things. The way we are is our nature. You know, when we're evil to each other, that's just our nature. And we're just part of this evolutionary path. We're just fulfilling our nature. It's normal, right?
Yeah.
And then creation says, no, we had an original nature that says, this is our good nature. But if you look at everything, everything lives for something higher. Atoms live to be molecules, molecules live to be minerals, minerals live to be plants and animals. So everything lives for something higher. So why shouldn't we? We have that nature too.
Yeah. Just the human being forgot the commandment don't eat fruit, and just the relationship with God is forgotten. That's why harder to the first human being didn't create it, and then create nothing had a road yet. We have to create our own. That's why the religious God created the religious and things to remind the relationship. Now the time second coming of Christ came to and lived like a sinner. Himself lived like a sinner, but he brought up the idea of how to live to God, how to talk to God, and then in the life, adapting the relationship with God, and that's why our Messiah taught about how to love each other. It's the most precious because the outside world always see the fighting, everybody fighting on reason, but nobody teach about love. And truly love, especially man and woman love each other. That's why revolutionary in the teaching or new teaching is the highest teaching that brought here. That's why we have to inherit through the Bible and the scripture, inherit the history, and then now the time, the second coming, to building up yourself to be the new human being, to receive true love, and then in the marriage, in the family, also the receiving blessing is advanced, and that's why we want to share with this idea. I hope people can inherit the teaching and understand, takes time to digest the word, but in the digest and then practice. Through the practicing the living for sake of others, it will give you the joy and the happiness, and the hope will rise. That's what we do here.
Yeah, so you have to fight yourself for a long time, maybe your whole life, and maybe your children have to fight themselves, but gradually it becomes more and more natural. Living for the sake of others is our nature. It's our true nature. But our true nature has been covered so long, so dead, so long, like a dead arm, that our true nature is buried in there, and to come back to life, it hurts. So you have to be ready for that. Be willing to go through that pain and restore yourself so that you can find the true nature. You don't want a dead arm. You don't want a dead spirit. You want your spirit to be alive. Then you're truly happy, both physically and spiritually. By the way, it doesn't mean you don't have sex or eat or sleep anymore. You know, your spirit will make sure those things happen because those are part of our true nature also. There's nothing wrong with eating and sleeping and having sex. Those things are natural. But they're physically natural. Spiritually natural is to love others. So both have to be honored. And actually the spiritual side should be in the subjective position. The physical side should be in the objective position. The subjective position, the central position, is held by the spirit. And actually we don't need a lot of time or energy to take care of our physical needs. Most of our time and energy can be spent loving and serving others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, join us in prayer. Dear Father, we want to thank you so much for today. It's a beautiful snowy day outside. It feels like we're enclosed in a beautiful, encapsulated in snow. It's like a cozy feeling, and it's wonderful. We ask your blessing, Father, that we can be responsible people. Allow ourselves to go through the pain of coming back to life. Welcome the pain. Welcome it. Some people will see it as punishment or as judgment for their sins. But actually, it's just you trying to get the blood flowing again, Father. You want us to wake up, to prick our conscience. We have to see that what we've done and how we've lived is evil and it's wrong in many ways. And we have to stop sinning. And we have to live our lives with you at the center every minute, Father. And then the pain we feel is going to be good, healthy pain as the blood flows back into our spirit, the spiritual blood, the life coming from you, Father. Please help us to welcome this pain, to seek the pain actually, to look for the places that are still numb in our spirit, to shake them and hit them and make them come back to life, to let that pain, let that energy flow back in again and to come back to life, to wake up and become the unselfish people that Jesus and our true Father modeled. Father, unselfish people, people living for the sake of others, not because they had to, Father, but because they wanted to, because it's the only thing that brings us joy and happiness. It's the only way our spirit can be happy. Father, I ask your blessing on this day. Please bless this day. Please bless all our listeners and everyone here at home. We offer this day to you and this week to you. And we offer everything. 축복 중심 가정 라만과 타미코 모타나를 이름으로 보고드립니다. Offer this report in the name of Raman and Tamiko Montana, our blessed central family. Aju. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Raman.
Yes, you're welcome.